Sinners is awesome. In fact, watching this movie was one of the most insane and memorable cinema experiences I've had in a really long time. Now look, I'm gonna be careful talking about this film in case you haven't seen it, because I do think that everyone should go into this thing as blind as possible. I certainly did, and I'm positive it's the best way to do it. So not only will I be avoiding spoilers, but I'll also try not to show too much footage, because honestly the trailers of this movie show way too much. But anyway, let's dive into this absolute behemoth. I always thought Ryan Coogler was a really good director. He's very much someone who's drawn to stories about legacy, about black identity, memory, loss, survival, and the way those things shape how people move through the world. His films tend to sit at the intersection of the personal and the political, but they never feel preachy or abstract. Even when the stories get bigger or the stakes get louder, you can still feel that grounded human core underneath. In fact, I reckon Coogler's one of the only directors who was actually able to walk into the MCU and still keep his artistic voice somewhat intact, which you've got to say is pretty impressive considering the creative stranglehold of Marvel Studios. And look, while the guy does have a rock-solid filmography under his belt, especially considering how young he is, I do think Sinners kind of blows all his previous efforts out of the water. I think this is the film where we really get to see just how special of a storyteller he is. Set in 1930s Mississippi at the height of the Jim Crow era, Sinners follows two brothers, both played by Michael B. Jordan, in what is for my money the best performance, or performances, of his career so far, who return to their rural hometown after nearly a decade up north, bringing with them a pile of money and a plan of opening up the hottest juke joint in the South. But to be honest with you guys, that doesn't even begin to cover what this film is doing. Because around that simple premise, Sinners builds this rich, intoxicating world full of music, memory, and myth. A world that feels ancient and brand new at the same time. It's the kind of story where the past and the present and the real and the unreal all begin to just blur together, and man, it's so enjoyable to watch unfold. It's so great to see such a confident, ambitious movie with an original premise and a big budget which is taking so many huge swings. Like, when you hear me on this channel or anyone else criticizing the modern landscape of cinema, this is what we're after. Like, this is what we want. Because sure, this movie at times is a little messy, but it's messy in all the right ways, if that makes sense. It's the kind of film where you just get the sense that every single thing Coogler has ever cared about, every artistic impulse, every musical influence, every historical reference point, every pulp genre he loved growing up, just got chucked into the stew, and it really works. Yes, Sinners is set during the Great Depression, but it doesn't feel like a period piece in the traditional sense. The costumes, the production design, they're stunning, obviously, but it's the energy that makes it feel different. There's this wild, alive, modern heartbeat running through it, like history is less something to reenact and more something to remix. It's sweaty and chaotic and truly surreal at points, but it never lost me. I just had so much respect for what Coogler was going for the entire time that I basically ran with everything this movie threw at me. Like, there are sequences in this film where the camera's floating through rooms, people are dancing or playing or singing, and it just feels like time has collapsed. The film doesn't just depict the past, it drags it kicking and screaming into the present. And it does this mostly through its exceptional and diverse sonic landscape. Music is everywhere in Sinners, it's the film's soul. Ludwig Göransson has done it once again. This guy is easily one of the best composers working today and will surely go down as an all-timer. His score is this mad, genre-blurring fusion of old blues, spirituals, deep bass lines, and weird dissonant flourishes that almost sound like the film is glitching out, like it's collapsing under the weight of its own awesomeness. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to here, but there's this one sequence about halfway through the film which blends all these different musical styles, and it is honestly one of the most incredible things I've seen in a cinema in a really long time. I'm talking proper, hypnotic, overwhelming stuff, and honestly, man, I just had like the dumbest grin on my face throughout the entire thing. I guess I just loved so much how this movie chose to tell its story. In many ways, it really has the energy of a pulpy, grindhousey B-movie, full of twists and turns, big genre swings, moments that could easily be silly in the wrong hands. But it's all executed with such confidence and artistry and sincerity, such brilliant all-round filmmaking, and with the kind of budget and craft that these kind of stories almost never get. I mean, for God's sake, this thing is shot on 65mm and it obviously looks amazing. It's a film which knows it's a tiny bit out there, but it fully respects that, you know? It fully commits to itself, if that makes sense. What this movie is doing with genre, I think, is really special. And again, not to spoil anything, but what makes the tone shifts land so hard in this film is that Coogler actually dedicates tons of time to these characters. Like, we really get to see them just going about their day for quite a while. There's a real looseness to the dialogue, especially in the first act, that reminded me of early Tarantino or even Robert Altman. You want to hang out with these people. You want to watch them drive around, flirt, argue, laugh, play music. And this of course means that when things do begin to shift, when the stakes get real and the genre and tone start to contort, it actually hits really hard. And this is of course hugely helped by the A-game which the entire cast brings. We've talked about Michael B. Jordan already, he's phenomenal here. I have seen some people online over the years claim that he's not that good of an actor, but I can't imagine anyone thinking that after watching this movie. This is what you might call a Tom Hardy in Legend or Jesse Eisenberg in The Double type of performance. That tricky thing of playing two different people who are not only different to each other but also have a relationship with each other, that is very integral to what the film is attempting to pull off. But Michael B. Jordan nails it here, as does the effects people who have to somehow put these two performances into the same shot. It looks so seamless, I don't really know how they do it, but it's just so impressive. Anyway, the ensemble around Michael B. Jordan is just as strong, especially Wunmi Mosaku, newcomer Miles Caton, who just has the most amazing voice, and of course Delroy Lindo, who reminds me a bit of John Goodman or John Turturro in the way that he just sort of steals every scene I've ever seen him in anything ever. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie, this thing just gets better and better the more I think about it. I watched it last night and I haven't really been able to stop thinking about it ever since. In fact, even since I started writing this review, it's gone up even more in my estimation, which is pretty funny. But I just think it's one of those movies which has a ton of staying power, you know? It's just so bold and ambitious and specific. It's really not a film we see that often, especially not with this budget. It's exciting to see that despite the fact cinema is kind of in this awkward position at the moment, studios are actually still giving the odd green light to stuff as weird, epic, ambitious, and personal as Sinners. And for Ryan Coogler, I mean, it genuinely feels like a new chapter. Don't get me wrong, you can still feel the fingerprints of his earlier work all over this. There's tons of overlap, of course. But I don't know, man. I had no idea he was capable of something this inventive and original. Yes, from a technical filmmaking perspective, but especially from a writing and storytelling perspective. Like, again, not to just keep on going on about it, but what Sinners is doing with its blend of genres and tones and the things it chooses to take its time on just makes me think we have a bit of a classic on our hands. It is for sure a little messy, but I think it's handled with enough respect and discipline and genuine artistry to make the messiness actually really work in the movie's favour. Sinners is definitely my film of the year so far, and to be honest, it's gonna be hard to beat. I don't know, maybe Paul Thomas Anderson can do it, we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, please go watch this in the cinema, not just because it's an epic tale which should be experienced on as big a screen as possible, but also just because this is the type of movie all of us have claimed we want more of, so vote with your wallets, go see it, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good day.